The camera's on.
You're retarded. We are very gratified to see so many young people because we know you are the future. All right, let me open it up. I've got to get up early in the morning, but let me just open it up to some thoughts, questions, but mostly your ideas about, and one mostly for the young people here. How do we go forward? What are you hearing from your friends? Yeah, introduce yourself.
Yes, so hello, Senator Sanders again. I'm Gregory Sendana, the Executive Director of an organization called the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance, and I'm on the General Board of the AFL-CIO. So thank you again for coming to meet with us earlier today. So a question I have for you is, I really like what you've been saying around needing to build a political revolution and really trying to build a movement. And I think one thing right now that I've been learning and learning a lot from and participating in is in the movement for Black Lives and Black Lives Matter. So I just wanted to kind of just hear your reflections on how you're going to try to continue to engage and work with the folks as part of the Black Lives Matter movement, and if there's any reflections or thoughts since the Netroots Nation town hall that happened.
Well, why don't you, let me throw, I'm happy to answer it, but let me throw it out to people in this room. I mean, to me, this is the way I look at it from my perspective. I think you got two separate, equally important issues. Number one is institutional racism. That takes the form of police officers shooting people in the back or in the cars, as we just seen in Cincinnati. And basic discrimination. That is a real huge issue in this country that has to be addressed. But it's not this, some of you may remember, where was Martin Luther King Jr. when he was killed? Anyone remember?
Hotel.
He was in a hotel. What city? Memphis, Tennessee. What was he doing in Tennessee at that time? Was he there on a quote-unquote civil rights march?
No.
What was he doing? Who knows?
Supporting the sanitation workers.
He was there because, as I recall, a sanitation worker had been killed in terrible working conditions, terrible wages. And he was out there. You know what else he was doing when he was dying, before he died? He was in the process of forming a poor people's march on Washington. And this is what he said. And I want you to argue with me if you disagree. I'm quoting him. You can argue with him too. But this is what he said. This is the man who led a desegregation of the South, was jailed 1 million times, came close to being killed, and so forth and so on. He said, you know, in so many words, he said, we have made great progress, breaking down the barriers of segregation of the South. But then he said, you know, what does it matter if we allow somebody, black people can go into a luncheonette, but they don't have the money to buy their house? What does it matter if we break down the racist barriers in schools, but black people can't afford to go into those schools? So his goal was twofold. Number one, breaking down racist barriers, but at the same time understanding that you had to create jobs and decent income for people. The famous March on Washington, what was it called? For jobs and freedom, right? That's what it was called. For jobs and justice. Jobs and justice. That is what he understood. So you can break down all of the racist barriers in America tomorrow. And if you have 50% of African American kids who have no jobs, if kids can't go forward to college, you still have very serious problems. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. So I think we have to work on both levels. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I'm a junior at Middlebury College, and I founded College Students for Bernie in the spring. We have over 100 as well as a bunch of committees working to help spread the word about the progressive student movement. So we're planning on hosting a student debt protest this fall, a nationwide one where we want to get media attention. So I was just wondering what we should keep in mind when we're staging the student debt protest.
I think what you should keep in mind, number one, it is a huge problem. It's a huge problem. Are you one of those dealing with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I mean, nothing to be embarrassed about. You're not the only one. You know, we have people in my office who've gone to law school who are well over $100,000 in debt. People who are paying 9, 10%. Are you in that boat?
Yeah, law students, lots of debt.
And you're going to be $250,000. Really?
I am for undergrad.
What's your debt?
Well, my parents already paid up 100,000, but I still have 160 left.
What is this for? Have you done graduate school?
Undergrad. I just graduated undergrad.
All right, well, this is pretty crazy stuff. It really is, because what it means is people will be paying. You're going to go out and you get a job. You're going to be paying what percentage of your income are you paying now in student debt?
My parents are still paying
Okay.
it right now.
Right.
I get that 6 months.
Yeah, okay. But it's not uncommon for people to be paying 20, 25%. You know what that means? You can't buy a car. You can't buy a house. People don't get married because of that debt. And it is a huge burden on the economy. Because we would like you to go out and buy a house and buy a car and create jobs, and all you're doing is paying back your student debt. So it is a huge issue. I think the demand should be, you can make whatever demand you want. But what we are talking about is, what's your interest rate, do you know?
Not positive.
Okay.
Sorry, didn't.
Who has, you have 8? All right.
Yeah, from a federal loan.
Right.
Okay, so
6.8.
You have 8.5?
8.5.
All right, here's the point. My wife and I refinanced our home last year, I think, I don't know, 3%. So how come I can refinance my home, and millions of people did, at 3%, you're paying 8.5%? You do not have the ability right now, legally, to refinance, right? You're stuck with that 8.5. But we're going to give you the freedom to refinance. So instead of 8.5, you pay 3. And the other thing is, what Obama did, which was an improvement, he took the loans out of the banks that were making billions. He put it into the government, which is now making a lot of money. Frankly, I don't think the government should be making money off of working class Americans. If we do those things, we can drive loans substantially lower. But at the end of the day, we have to do, how much, anybody here know how much college costs in Germany?
0.
That's right. And that's true for many other countries around the world. And that's a good policy. We want people to get the education they need, not discourage them. So I think we have to move toward free tuition, and for the immediate future, substantially lower student debt. All right? So you guys can come up with whatever your demand is, but you do that. That movement will grow, and Congress, in fact, will
We have a
act.
whole bunch of chapter leaders here as well.
Fantastic. Okay, yes.
I'm just, you couldn't see him in the corner, so.
Yes.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Thank you. My name is Josh Odom. We already shook hands
Yeah.
before. I'm a rising junior at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and I'm the People African Descent Chair for the United States Student Association. And so, so as a fellow Brooklynite, I know that we sometimes talk about issues that are going on in New York and Brooklyn as well. And as one of the co-sponsors of the Violence Against Women Act, the time that it got back to Brooklyn, a trans woman was beaten within an inch of her life last October. Her name is Kimmy Hartman. So just to tie back into Greg's question, in terms of we see a lot of the Black Lives Matter protest actions and so forth being steered by not only women of color, but trans women of color. So if elected, what policies would you then implement to A, bolster the Violence Against Women Act, and B,
To the Violence Against Women Act?
yeah, and then B, to also put more pressure on those who this epidemic of trans women being murdered in the United States?
Well, let me take the second part and then go to the first part. Look, either you believe in discrimination or you don't believe in discrimination. I don't believe in discrimination. And that means we're going to try to fight to create a society where we end discrimination against all people, including transgender people. In fact, there is a bill now just introduced last week, I think, by a colleague of mine from Oregon, Jeff Merkley, which essentially puts these issues of discrimination against the LGBT community at the same level as discrimination against race. And that will be a huge step forward. That covers the broad area of employment, of housing, and all forms of discrimination, okay? So we're gonna fight to see that that legislation gets passed, of which I am a co-sponsor. The first question was?
I was going to see that was kind of my question in terms of how do you see that falling under the Violence Against Women Act, because trans women of color are being murdered at an epidemic rate?
I would look at it in another way, but with strong legal protection. I think what Merkley is doing is the right one. Yes.
So I would like to know, what steps are we taking that you don't get Howard Deaned? I remember watching Howard Dean when I was a child, and I was like, wow, this guy's great. And he got killed because of some basically the media tried to go after him. So what are we doing that?
All right, that's a great question. The answer is it is one of the issues that, you know, and I talk about it fairly frequently, is the role of media in politics today. We will, it's not so bad now, it will get worse.
Yes.
The media does not want to see somebody with white beans become president of the United States. And we have got to hyperactivate our website. We need to figure out a mechanism that we can circumvent the media and get our issues out. I'm very proud, I was looking at my website today. For the Senate, we have 1.5 million friends on Facebook for the Senate. And our campaign website is growing as well. So to answer your question, we have got to be very cognizant that the function of the media is not to allow for serious debate about serious issues. It's to do many, many other things. So we are very conscious of that, and your concern is very justified.
Thank you.
Yes, right.
So you talked about a grassroots movement a lot, and a lot of my friends have been encouraged by it. What advice would you give to people who are considering a career in politics and kind of want to follow your footsteps, starting at local government? How do you kind of maintain your integrity? How do you
The first thing I think that you have to do is to go very deep into your heart. I see a lot of young people, especially on Capitol Hill, and they want to be a governor, they want to be a senator. That's not what it's about. What you have got to want to do is to change society, and politics is one way. You can be a great teacher. You can have a profound impact on the world. You can be involved in the civil rights movement, in the trade union movement, have a profound impact on the world. Running for office is just one way to do it. But the main thing is, your goal has not got to be, gee, I want to be a senator. How do I become a senator? Your goal has got to be, how do I make change? You're looking at somebody who, when he was young, ran for statewide office in Vermont. You know what percentage of the vote I got? 2%. And I ran again. You know what I got? 1%. Okay? Point is, don't think about how I get elected. Think about what the needs are and then fight for those needs. And if you have a bent toward school board, if you have a bent toward city council, state legislature, go for it. That's fantastic. But stay on the issues. Don't become a careerist. You understand what I mean? Fight for principle. Last question, because I've got to get going. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm from Reddit Reddit for Sanders, and we've been having this conversation wherein we want to know how the grassroots movement can position itself with your campaign, and it has been an ongoing conversation within our ranks, and I would like to hear from you, like, how do you picture the grassroots movement, given that this is an organizing meeting? Like, how do you see us helping your campaign in moving forward, starting from now?
I mean, that's a great question, and I don't know that I have a definitive answer. We are in this campaign all of 3 months. And the good news and the bad news is the campaign is exploding a lot faster than we thought it would. And frankly, we don't have the political infrastructure. You see Jeff is standing right next to you? He started this campaign with a full head of hair.
We're the same.
He weighed 140 pounds. But he has been trying to put together a political infrastructure. Now, I kind of think in a general sense, I mean, we are hiring, we now have, what, we have 25 people in Iowa, and half a dozen or so people in New Hampshire, so we're putting together the infrastructure. But I think the way it's going to end up working is we are going to give a lot of autonomy toward grassroots groups. You know your area of work, whether it's a group of people or whether it's a state or a community, you know it better than I do. But there's got to be a connection. You can't go off doing anything you want to do. So we're going to have a relationship, but we're going to give you a lot of responsibility. How can we? You tell me, what is the best avenue forward? How can we knock on doors? How can we educate? How do we register people who are not registered? Okay? And we need to do things. We have been very slow in even getting literature out. We finally have a piece of literature I think we'll get out in a little while. We have to improve our website. I want that website to be a place that you can go learn about my views on any issue. We're not there yet, to be frank. Okay? But the combination will be, is you're going to have a lot of autonomy. Do what you think makes sense. You know, so long as you're not trying to, don't do crazy things.
We won't.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, I got to get to bed. But,